Whether at home or work, life is about relationships. Welcome to Small Change, Big Dividends with your host, Branch Isole. Small Change, Big Dividends shares steps, tools, and tips for personal career and spiritual growth. So please welcome the host of Small Change, Big Dividends, Branch Isole.
What's absent today in many lives across the planet? In a world of 8 billion people, why do the vast majority struggle? What's missing? If we remove the social, economic, religious, and political from life's equation, we are left with the individual, you and me, and perhaps those closest and most dear to us. So, why do so many of us struggle? Certainly, stress, struggle, pressure, and conflict have been part of humanity's journey since our first breath. But why? Life's journey is an opportunity to grow from successes and failures. But it's the world's ways that remain grounded in stress, struggle, pressure, and conflict. You see, each of us are mind, body, soul, and spirit. Now, mind and body we recognize easily. However, our soul and spirit are often relegated to the background, into the recesses of our being. And our focus is most often in the forefront of our activities, choices, and consequences. So, what is it that makes people tick? And what's missing from this tick tock of daily life? Sometimes it's just about timing. Coming to you from deep in the forest, near the banks of the Ouachita River, you're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. Small Changes, Big Dividend is a show where your questions are part of the program. So if you have a question, you can call toll free during our live show to 1-866-451-1451. Or you can email your question anytime during the week to my website, branchisole.com. Thanks for joining me again today. Each week I share mana'o with listeners from around the world. On Small Changes, Big Dividends, we talk about personal, career, and spiritual Christianity essentials for growth-filled living. Today, I'm going to share some small changes that can pay big dividends in your relationships and in your life. Because whether at home or work, life is about relationships, but it's healthy relationships that encourage and embrace growth. What's missing for far too many people today is cognition that our soul houses a partially active spirit. And if we look behind the world's veil, we can discover what motivates people to respond and react in the ways that they do. But the key is knowing why people respond in those ways. You see, when we understand the whys, the hows become self-evident. And whether it's with employees, coworkers, customers and clients, even family members, when we look behind the veil, we discover 3 keys that can help improve any relationship or interaction. Here's what they are. Acknowledge attitude, belief, and perception, both yours and the other person's. Second, replace old pattern automatic responses with new grounded interactions couched in polite civility. And 3, become a diplomatic expert. Remember, whether it's your children, your employees, or anyone in your charge, you were once where they are now. Next, there are 3 essential elements behind every project's success. They are direction, balance or stability, and internal power. And there's three pillars of interpersonal understanding with those you choose to share or invest your time with. Those are love, approval, and agenda. And finally, there's five motivators behind every decision we make. Those are need, want, status, love, and fear of loss. You see, by knowing and using these key elements of how, you can improve your personal and career relationships, as well as foster growth and reinforce positive interactions with those who come into your life. It's the sinew of strength within these that is the key, and that is spiritual grounding. Because a reactivated spiritual knowledge guarantees your life will never be the same. So now that we've identified the hows and the whys of responsive behavior, what do we do with this new wisdom? Well, first we might ask, what is wisdom? And scripture tells us fear of the Lord, meaning respect and reverence, is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 9:10. And a reestablished spiritual relationship reveals the essence of who God is. And with this new knowledge of Him, we start to understand how He would have us respond, morally and ethically, to our daily interactions with others. You see, His spiritual strength reactivates our spiritual essence when we invite Christ's Spirit into our life. This is John 3:6. And as with most interactions between God and humanity, what we choose to do with this spiritual guidance remains our decision. We can embrace it or we can ignore it. But once reactivated, our spirit of origination will never be the same, and Christ will never abandon us. You see, by inviting Jesus into our life, we become a renewed child of God. And God's concern as creator is for all of humanity. But when we're born again through Christ's Spirit, we become recipients of God's grace by right and privilege, to be considered His child once again, the same as Jesus. Once we start or restart a spiritual relationship with the Lord, His spiritual strength is available whenever we choose and whenever we ask. So, how do we use this strength in our daily life? Now, this may be one of the most important questions to be answered by those contemplating a spiritual path. You see, we often understand how to respond to people, events, and incidences in our lives, but understanding why we do what we do often goes unnoticed before, during, or after we act. In its simplest terms, an active spiritual connection brings God's guidance, counsel, blessings, and protection, as well as a promise of everlasting spiritual life. Now, if you're one of the many people who scoff at this statement, so be it. Either one believes in God and His Word and thereby acknowledges His Word to be true, or they don't. But when you invite and accept Christ into your life, He will send the Spirit of truth, the same Spirit that is God, to reactivate and dwell with your partially active spirit. You see, the Spirit of truth is exactly that. It's a new realization of truth's presence in your life. And by employing this spiritual strength, you start to recognize truth and therefore its antithesis, the lies, deceit, falsehoods, and fabrications of and in our world. With new awareness of truth, the veil of rationalized delusion is lifted. Now, we're each given free will choice within our conscious mind. Yet, simply knowing truth exists doesn't always translate into truthful actions or responses. Truth reveals an understanding of the inherently false, fabricated, or manipulated words and actions that you see revealed in your life. Now, we each come into the world dependent on life support from our parents, our siblings, our grandparents, maybe caregivers. And those who accept this responsibility for care and nurturing of us as babies, infants, and children goes on till we're about age 2. And at age 2, we learn the power of the word no. And soon we also learn its adverse consequences, meaning future choice and decision outcomes become well established through our actions tied to our understanding of right and wrong. And in every aspect of life, we soon learn that right and wrong often means reward or punishment. And as we grow, we become accustomed to our community and our society's legal systems, religions, and social interactions. So the more we learn to identify right and wrong actually means reward and punishment, the more fearful we become of making inappropriate or wrong decisions. You see, right and wrong conceptually is inherently sound at its foundation. But for many, it morphs into choice between will this result or outcome be a reward or a punishment for me? And in our 21st century world of it's all about me or what's in it for me, our natural instinct is to ask, how will this particular choice or consequence affect me in this specific moment? You see, God's character, nature, truth, and love are grounded in morals and ethics. And as we come to know God more fully, our connection between Him and us through Christ becomes one of solid understanding that each choice or decision now can be revealed in its moral and ethical state. It's this free will that we have that becomes the vehicle through which our choice to respond can become moral and ethical actions or not. You see, right and wrong choice portends results for us. But moral and ethical choices reveal benefits, not only for us, but for those in our life, family, friends, coworkers, the people we care about most. This is the power of spiritual strength. And now that we recognize morals and ethics are the core dilemma in every decision or choice, the question is no longer what's in it for me, couched by right and wrong, reward and punishment. We now understand that the hows and the whys, the morals and ethics, as in what's in it for me and others, those I care about, my family, my friends, my community. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what would Jesus do? You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Radio show host and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. In the early 1990s, beaded bracelets with the letters WWJD was briefly popular, and like most fads, its impact was short-lived. Its purpose, however, has been impactful for over 2,000 years. This question, what would Jesus do, first gained attention from a book by Charles Sheldon, a Kansas preacher, in his book, In His Steps, What Would Jesus Do? You see, people were encouraged to ask this prior to any choice or decision by reflecting consciously on spiritually guided actions. However, missing from this 1990s campaign was a behind-the-veil answer that could actually be used by believers asking that question. As Christians with reactivated spirits, when we turn to the Lord in times of need, He always answers. He always proves faithful, whether we oblige His responsive answer or not. Why is this? Well, His guidance is always grounded in truth, because God cannot lie, nor will He ever guide or lead us astray. See, He allows the outcomes of our decisions and the weight of our choices to rest with us, not Him. Should we ignore His guidance or deny His response to our dilemma, we can still expect an answer, whether we're on a spiritual path or not, because we have that seed of spirit within us at birth. And whether we embrace the ways of the world or not, or whether we embrace the spiritual path or not, is our decision, because now we each possess a spiritual connection to God as creator of the universe. So our question actually becomes, how can we have better outcomes? Well, the easiest way is to avoid negative reactions by first reflecting on previous choices and their consequences, and then staying away from attempts to force square pegs into round holes. But know this, if an action or response feels inappropriate, it probably is, no matter how much we may desire it to be otherwise. Remember, there's a balance in the universe, and there can be a balance in life, and we can come closer to attaining that balance by using less resistance or oppositional force, either from our end as production or our end as receiver. If we've made a prior decision or choice and its outcome wasn't in our best interest, why would we want to go back there again for negative consequences? Why would we continue to drive or attempt to drive a square peg into a round hole? Meaning inappropriate responses and actions produce outcomes that we know from experiential previous learning can prove to be not in our best interest. You see, square peg, round hole examples represent the missing essence of growth-filled learning and changed patterns for future behavior. Square peg, round hole equals tension, turmoil, resistance. Round peg, round hole equals smooth transitions and rewarding outcomes. Remember, God allows our decisions and the weight of our choices to rest with us, not Him. After all, it's our life. His Spirit reveals consequences of our old pattern behaviors, the ones that are influenced by the ways of the world. So whether we choose to turn to or away from God's counsel remains our choice and responsibility. But know this, either way, either choice, either path, God still loves and cares about us, and He'll be waiting each time after a negative consequence or fallout, should we continue to choose the world's ways. He will not abandon us once we've invited His Spirit to dwell with ours. You see, God has always understood His prodigal children, and He's aware that we learn and grow from life's experiences. As a loving parent, He allows life's lessons to enlighten us to the fact that we have options. And as a loving parent, He smiles approvingly when we choose to do what's in our best interest, guided by His Spirit. And as we learn to call upon and rely upon the Lord's Spirit, the more we engage and the more we start to realize His presence in our lives. See, there's a hidden key in this "what would Jesus do" process that can at first seem weird or uncomfortable, because we may doubt or wonder if He'll answer. Well, be assured He will. As a Spirit reactivated child of His, He always responds to our call of need. You see, God's love is so great, every time we interact with His Spirit, He responds. And the farther down the spiritual path we walk, the more aware we become of His presence and support. He reveals Himself the more we entertain and embrace His presence. Remember this, everyone who now walks in the Spirit with Christ once did not. We wandered, we wondered. We hoped, prayed, and ignored opportunities. We failed to believe or have faith that He cared. But He does. And what He has done for those who now believe in Christ Jesus, He'll do for you also as a believer. That's His promise. So if you find yourself in situations where you're struggling or battling with others, it's time to stop. You see, most relationship disillusionment or frustration is not between you and the other person. It's between the humanist you and the spiritual you. So what's in it for you? What's your benefit, your reward for navigating daily choices with a spiritual roadmap? Simply said, more peaceful, harmonious living. But because life is life, the only way we'll find out about that harmonious living is if we step on the path where harmonious living is naturally part of the journey. We're going to take our second break, and when we come back, we're going to find out what the mark of the beast is really all about. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. In our prophecy segment this week, Living in the End Times, we find that economics is one area in life that literally affects everyone alive every day. Always has, always will. This is why the Antichrist economic mark of the beast is going to be so critical in the last days, meaning the final 3.5 years of the tribulation, or what Scripture calls the Great Tribulation. You see, when the mark of the beast is decreed, every person alive will be forced to take this mark to prove allegiance to the Antichrist, and through him, worship of Satan. The mark of the beast will be the last days defining moment for all of humanity. Why? Those with the mark of the beast will be allowed to participate in buying and selling, meaning doing business and commerce. The Antichrist mark will mean they can buy groceries and pay for goods and services. Revelation 13:17. Those without the mark of the beast will be prohibited from being part of the Antichrist's new economic system. So let me ask you, do you receive any kind of government assistance in the form of income, Social Security, disability, pensions? Do you get any food assistance from programs like SNAP? Do you have health care assistance, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP programs? Do you have a mortgage or debts? Do you purchase anything on credit? Are you involved in or dependent on any financial interactions? If so, when the mark of the beast is decreed and implemented, you may continue to receive these types of services if you agree to take the Antichrist mark. If not, you'll be restricted from participating in any economy at any level, global or local. You see, the Antichrist regime may demand that all debts be collected and repaid immediately, or risk being eliminated from all forms of safety net payments or assistance, unless you have the mark. This is the power of economic control in the last days. And the choice will be simple: allegiance to the Antichrist or end of the story, meaning end of your life. Those who refuse or do not have the mark of the beast will be hunted down and killed. People will take the mark of the beast or beyond their own literally, trying to survive day to day for 3.5 years. So, how in the world could this type of economic program actually happen? Well, financial markets are the single element that makes the world's economy work. And today, different countries have different central banks with different currencies, trade agreements, exchange rates, and interest rates. But what if there is only one single currency for the entire world? How would or could this even happen? Is it even possible to realign the global economic markets into a single provider, single user system? And how in the world will we go from today's multiple and provincial financial markets to a one world economy system? Well, remember, as with every end times and last days event that we look at here on Small Changes, Big Dividends, the coming of the Antichrist mark of the beast has precursors, incremental steps taking place today that will set the stage for the mark of the beast to become a reality. You see, there's a group today called the World Economic Forum. That's a collection of economists, financial people, business people, and political leaders who are currently trying to reformulate or reset the world's current financial structures. They meet every year in Davos, Switzerland, to discuss how to make preparations for this potential reality in the future. The first step is to reset or restructure the world's different fiat currencies into a digital form. Fiat is the paper and coin money that a country uses. Effective January 25th of 2021, our U.S. Federal Reserve received the go-ahead for implementation of a new central bank digital currency model. Now, the easiest way to understand that is to know that the Fed's digital currency system, what they call Fed dollars, will eventually become everyone's bank. This will accomplish several things and gradually consolidate control of the U.S. financial system. Now, these changes will be incremental over the next few years. And to replace the US and possibly other fiat currencies with digital dollars should be accomplished or on its way very soon. You see, the Federal Reserve's accommodation to this money modification will most likely be started with and within two or more government agency models or methods. The first government agency will probably be Social Security, disability, annuities, any business with the IRS, Health and Human Services program recipients, and it will be done by transferring those government assistance federal government programs to payees as the first clients of this new credit and debit program. Second, with commercial retail buying and selling exchanges. Instead of payments being received by individuals or group, future Fed account holders will be credited electronically through a receiver's identity account, so that all your purchases and all your debt transactions will be credited and debited electronically in a digital wallet. Now, this can move countries steadily to a cashless society. And at stake then is national and global financial control. Once in cashless scenarios, all transactions will become trackable, traceable, and taxable. This type of central bank activity, cashless auto credit, auto debit system, is currently being used in Sweden, tested in China, and soon scheduled for operation in Switzerland. You see, many of the world's central banks are currently in digital wallet scenarios, and they're being considered, evaluated, and proposed by approximately 80% or 66 of the world's fiat currency central banks. So it's not just happening here in the States, it's happening worldwide. And the people in finance and the people in central banks realize that the way to control the economy globally is to have a one world currency system or a one world electronic digital banking system. It's a joint venture of exploration instituted and being accepted by central banks that will allow this global financial stage to be set for the Antichrist to take over the finances of the world when he comes to power. And this eventual one world currency system will be the New World Order financial structure. You see, the Antichrist dictate for all of us to have his identity mark for participation in buying and selling will then be easily implemented. You'll get your money, whatever you earn or are due, from the digital wallet from the government, and then they will have the opportunity, if they so desire, to control how that money is spent and with whom. You see, end time events will continue to occur with intensity and increased rates, along with catastrophic effects, beyond the response capabilities of any individual or government. And each will play its part in the run-up to a more chaotic and widespread fallout. It's easiest to recognize this has happened already in climate change, floods, fires, storms, the things that we see now literally every week around the world. And they'll continue, again, in intensity and in frequency, and yet most people will simply say, we live in a changing world. You see, the two largest and most far-reaching recent economic events that affected people worldwide have been the 2008 Great Recession and the coronavirus pandemic. These are just precursors to the events that will take place that will allow the Antichrist to come to power. The systems will all be ready and all be set. All that will be needed is to flip the switch. Ignorance of current or future events may be bliss, but not often. We're going to take our last break. When we come back, we'll talk about next week's program. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. You've been watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. Thanks for joining me today. On Small Changes, Big Dividends, we discuss personal, career, and spiritual Christianity essentials for growth-filled living. If you know someone who could benefit from today's episode, please share it with them. If today's show has been interesting for you, please give us a rating and review. To know more about my work, I invite you to visit my website, branchisole.com, or my YouTube channel, Branch Isole. Today's show has been sponsored by Crystal Creek Farm. If you have a business, a product, or service you'd like to share with the world on Small Changes, Big Dividend, send your inquiry to the website. This has been Small Changes, Big Dividends. Until next week, keep growing and be in the world, not of the world.
This has been Small Change, Big Dividends. When you're ready for healthier, more successful relationships at home or work, Small Change, Big Dividends is your show. Wednesdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.